Hi everyone, welcome back to the Spirit Lounge. I hope you are really well. Today's video is really about something I find quite interesting. It's just a sharing video more than anything else. It's about near-death experiences. Some of you may have watched some YouTube channels or YouTube videos of people publishing their near-death experiences. Some of them had one or more of those. And they're really interesting to watch and to listen to, and it gives you a lot of insight into why people see what they see in some of these near-death experiences, and I think they're great. And I'm going to put a link in the video description, and actually something at the end of this showing you a channel which I'm not connected to any of these channels that I may suggest. It's just I find them a great resource of some of these videos, and there are plenty of others outside of it. So I'll put the chap's YouTube channel name and link to at the end of this video, and also in the video description. Anything else that I may mention, such as the a video which another one I watched on from the Firesight Institute, which engages in experimentation and remote viewing. I'll touch on that later, and it'll be obvious why I'm bringing that up. So near-death experiences, what these are experiences that people have when they're in a state, a medical state if you like, or when they're in critical condition for some reason or another. It could be a heart attack, it could be meningitis in one example I'm going to give, E. coli bacterial meningitis. It could be anything. It could be a severe accident where they find themselves moving out of their bodies, and their consciousness moves out of their bodies. Not entirely so the body actually dies, they don't detach entirely from it, but it's where their consciousness moves out, and some of them see themselves on operating tables, theatres, on the ground being treated, whatever the situation may be, or predicament they find themselves in. Their consciousness leaves, and they have experiences. They have experiences that they report, and they're all varied in their experiences as to what they actually report and what they feel is real, and the visions or the sounds and the sights and the experiences and the people they meet, or the light beings that they meet in these near-death experiences. And they're all very, very interesting to watch. So I'd suggest that some of you guys may want to watch some of those. Now remember, anything you watch, like watching this video or anyone else's video, blogs, reading any books on the metaphysical, esoteric or spiritual, whatever it might be, requires an open mind. If you watch anything with a closed mind, you won't really pick up what that video may have a message in there for you, or a bit of learning in there, or expansion in there for you. So it's critical to have that trinity of the mind, the spirit and the heart coming together and kept open to all things you hear, because there is information in everything, I found. Even the most fantastic and bordering on, some people might call insane, unbelievable, beyond belief, things that people say that are real. I don't dismiss anything. Put it to the side. You don't have to accept anything either. You don't even have to investigate it, actually, if you don't want to. You just don't dismiss it. Just keep it to the side. And you may never ever bubble up to your surface consciousness again, but some of it will. Some of it will come back, and you'll go, yeah. And then you'll have a different perspective in maybe months, years to come, on what you've heard in the past that you outrightly dismissed through the mind as being utterly insane, ridiculous, and unbelievable, and a product of the mind and its imagination. So that's what you should do with these near-death experiences too, because they all they're good things to watch, I believe, and if you get time, watch a few. So why do I want to bring this up? It's because I've watched many near-death experiences, read a couple of books on people's experiences that they've written about their near-death experiences and how it's transformed their lives. And there was a constant that I found, which I've written about in the Afterlife chapter. in my own book. And that was that what almost entirely, with only a few exceptions, I'm going to make that statement, throw that out there. And remember, these are my perceptions, they don't have to be yours, they're just mine. I don't claim to know more than anyone else, or that my thoughts and perceptions are valid and others are not. These are just mine, and I put them out there for those who are open to listen to them, and maybe it sparks something in you. But they almost entirely, with only a few exceptions, I guess, and I've not really come across many exceptions, actually any right now, and that's only because I haven't watched enough near-death experience videos, is that their experiences that the person or their consciousness has in their near-death experience, what they report afterwards when coming back into consciousness, almost just about always reflects what they've ingrained within themselves in life. So, and I'll give you an example, a couple of examples actually that I've seen. If a person in life has been from childhood or even later life, whatever it is, whatever doctrine, dogma, parental teaching, religion of a church or a faith institution, whatever they've come across, which they've held on to closely, and has become a very, very, very strong and trained belief system within them. It can be religious, it can be non-religious, it can be spiritual, it can be of the mind, it can be of science, it can be of esoteric, of the mystic. It can be anything, whatever it is. It can be of a vision or image of a god. It could be multiple deities. It could be whatever you think and have ingrained and indoctrinated yourself, which is so tightly held, often is what you see when you have near-death experiences. So, for example, I've watched a few where the near-death experiences have been reporting from devout Christians, Catholics, and many of them always report similar things. Having visions of God as a white-bearded figure. Some of them have said they saw pearly gates. Some of them said they've seen the archetype avatar of Jesus come down and take them into the light. They've always followed a biblical depiction of heaven. Some of them have said they've actually been in a line, in a queue, waiting to enter heaven and seeing judgment in front of them. Someone judging them before and determining whether they can enter the kingdom of God, for example. Others have also reported seeing the archetypal hell, as in going down into depths, into fiery places, where they hear screams and anguish, and they're full of fear and trepidation, and they find themselves there. I also have seen evidence of in near-death experiences of where people have found themselves in what they might call purgatory places, in between heaven and hell, a place where they're in limbo, or they find themselves at risk of becoming some deformed creature or animal. And these are things that, when you watch the videos, you realise that actually they've come from a place, or they've come from an environment where these belief systems have been instilled in them very, very strongly through quite ingrained beliefs of faith or anything otherwise. I've also, a close friend of mine, a brother, for example, I was unconscious for a time when he was ill. And coming out, what was told to me that he had an experience that Hindu deities were fighting over his soul. Now, it's not quite a near-death experience because he's not dead, not leaving the body, but that is also an example of something which for him, through life, was taught and believed deeply within the heart that these deities and gods were were what we will return to, and he saw them, the good and the bad ones, or whichever were dense or light energy deities, fighting over his soul, as to which way, push and pull, to hell or heaven, would his soul go. So that's another example. So if we flip away from just what you might call religious thinking or metaphysical thinking, we can go the opposite towards the mind. Now, the mind, what intellectuals out there, particularly scientists out there, are predominantly completely dismissal of anything outside the body. The mind is the core of all consciousness. It creates everything we experience. Anything we think is mystic or spiritual is really just brain activity, and that's all there is. There's nothing before, nothing after. We are just these material bodies and vessels here, and after death we just disappear and our bodies go back into the ground or get burnt and scattered away. There is nothing else. There's just science, and that's all there is. Now, they often will have a similar experience too. And one very famous example of that was Professor Epton Alexander. He's written a book called Proof of Heaven, which is actually pretty good. And this experience, the experiences he had, that he reports in that book, transformed his life forever, pretty much. To now he's doing something very, very different to what he was doing when he had this experience. He fell ill with bacterial E. coli meningitis, I believe, and he was in the operating theatre, I believe, multiple times. On one such occasion, he was desperately ill, where in fact his brain activity stopped. He reported, and this was a highly recognised and respected neurosurgeon in the US, and during that time, he had a near-death experience, and he reported being in a dark place that he didn't understand. He didn't know. He found himself in a gooey, oily substance with strange sounds and figures of beings brushing past him. And he found himself in a place where he didn't understand, and it brought upon immense fear, worry, anguish, a state of loss, not knowing what's happened to him, not knowing the place he was going. Now, this could be what I would explain that is a place that, and remember what supports this, we are all spirits. We go home afterwards. There is life after this. In fact, death isn't the start of life, and the end of life, and reincarnation isn't the start of life either. We are infinite, always, everywhere, eternal, conscious, all-knowing beings of pure energy, consciousness, thought, and intention. That's what we are. We're everywhere all the time, and we come here to have experiences. So what I'm saying is these near-death experiences that having are imposed by us. And so Epton Alexander was in a place that he didn't understand, just a place of really nothingness, a place where you'd end up if you didn't have any precognition or expectation or a complete dismissal of something that exists beyond life. So he ended up in a place where he didn't understand. But what happened after that period of time was that he said he felt what he felt. He was there for quite a long time, which would have been instantaneous within the timelessness of the infinite, which is where you are when you're out of body. Pulled into a completely different space of pure light and being everywhere, in all things, and discovering that he's a spiritual being and having multiple experiences in that state, in the experiences that followed that dark place he was in. He was pulled out, and he had other experiences. Then those are the experiences that utterly changed his life. And if you read up what he's doing now, it may shock some of you as to what he does now. It's a very, very different line of work. Excuse me. I have a cough, and so I haven't been doing videos lately. And it's interesting to find that, and I think what these stories represent is that if we have near-death experiences can mimic, in some cases, what, if they're very, very extreme, what we may experience temporarily when we may pass on at the end of life. Whatever we believe so strongly will come up in a near-death experience, is my perception. If we strongly believe something, if we believe that death is a time where our relatives will come and greet us, the people we loved so dearly in this life that we remember with our hearts will come and greet us, that's probably what you'll see in near-death experiences. If you think that heaven is really just like earth, just more vibrant and colourful and beautiful, and everyone that you knew and all life is just the same there, you may experience that in a near-death experience too. If you feel that you've done immense wrong and such negative, you've lived a quite dense and negative life of hurting and doing pouring negative actions through your own free will onto others, you may have fear of reaching a hell that you've envisioned in your own mind so strongly and very fearfully. You may experience something like that in your near-death experience. I haven't had one like that, because those that report near-death experiences usually report those because they've had beautiful ones, or positive ones, or ones that they want to share. Excuse me. So watch these near-death experiences because they're quite interesting. And I'll come on to something else before I go on to the real message of this video. I guess there's a message in everything, I suppose, even though it wasn't intentional. I watched something else recently, it was mirroring what I've heard before in the New Age and the ufology kind of alternative space, if you want to call it that. It was from the Farsight Institute, which the director is Professor Courtney Brown. Now, I've written about some of his experiments in my book also, because they kind of, from a scientific perspective, are trying to prove consciousness beyond life. The spirit realm in a more scientific way, called subspace, I suppose, which is the Akasha, the quantum field. Professor Courtney Brown conducts experimentation, and he publishes them on his own YouTube video, which he has online. You could find that, and I'll leave a link to that if you're interested. But he recently published a remote viewing video called Death Traps. I was waiting for this because I was suspecting what he was going to say, and he actually said what I thought he was going to say, because I've heard this before. His experiments, although to be honest, in my opinion, didn't really prove much. It was more drama than actual real proof, but it was more fear than I would expect. But they claimed that when we die, and they're doing remote viewing, and remote viewing works in this way. I'll summarize it. A remote viewer is really, in my view, a psychic who's able to move their perception and their frequency up into what they call subspace and access the quantum field, which is the Akasha of all possibility in time and events of that future, past and present, because it's all the same. And they're given, and these people are called remote viewers because they're trained in a scientific method, either coming out of the military or adapted from it. And they are trained in this approach methodology, which is highly scientific and double blind, if not more, where they're given a task. Now, a task for them is presented to them as a number, just a random number of 6 or 8 digits, whatever it might be. And that number is provided to them by what's known as a tasker, another person who decides, I would like these remote viewers, this collection of people, these remote viewers, to look at a certain thing for me. And I'm going to, what they do, they have an intention, in my view, and they put that intention into a random sequence. And what they do there, they put that intention into a random sequence, and they give that sequence of numbers or letters, whatever it might be, to the remote viewers. The remote viewers then concentrate their attention onto that, and then they report what they can see. So it's completely blind. They don't have no idea what these numbers mean, what they are. They just merely look into project their intuition and perception into those and use the remote viewing methodology, the scientific methodology, and report on it, either on a board or they describe it, depending on what their approach, what's their individual character aligns to, and they tell you what they see. So anyway, the intention was for them to see what were these death traps. And they all had some reported to a degree. There was that in depth, they viewed basically what happens to a person when they die, and where do they go, what do they see? And they reported events, experiences that these various subjects that they perceived when they died were seeing when the consciousness moved away from their bodies. And they were saying that they were presented with these doors, these doorways, these pathways, options to go through a door. And what the ultimate was that the individual would go through a particular door, and it would initially present some kind of light, some pleasant place, and they'd walk along the path and through this door, which is ultimately turned dark, and then what would they experience in the end would be a complete mind wipe and a recycle back into Earth in another body with a similar life to what they lived previously. And this was claimed to be something that was an experience that most would have, unavoidable for many, but not mandatory, and that there's some kind of recycling out there, and that there is a alternate force other than the divine trying to intercept souls, in other words, and recycling them down into the planet as human beings again. What was interesting was almost every single one of the persons that the remote viewers were perceiving, all individual, separate people, were either from a war, died in horrific circumstances, were full of hate, were killing in life, and just wanted to kill even after life. They had hate within them. Almost every single one. And of course, they were all. These just a few examples that they had. They weren't. This was not an exhaustive study, so don't put fear in yourselves. I want to explain this. So for me, all of the near-death experiences and these remote viewing experiments, what are they? Well, they are reflections of what and where we've placed ourselves in life. We will experience in these near-death experiences where consciousness may fleetingly feel it's exiting the body, having out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, seeing an alternate space, an alternate experience. And this happened to Eben Alexander when his brain activity had actually shut down. So it wasn't his brain activity, which is what transformed his life, because he's a scientist, he's a man of science and medicine. So for him was a fantastic experience, something that he couldn't explain. But what happens there is that you experience what has been ingrained within you and indoctrinated within you in life. If you severely and sincerely believe something in your heart to be true, and this is what it is, afterlife, and this is what afterlife is, and this is what's going to happen to me, and this is what I'm going to experience, if it's light or fear, if it's love or density, doesn't matter. It will reflect in a near-death experience you may have. It may reflect in what you may experience in an unconscious state, if you have those kind of experiences in a dream, for example. And these death traps, well, if you're in a dense state, remember the universe is all possibility. I don't completely reject the idea that something out there would try to intercept a soul, a spiritual essence, a fractal of our core, and try to manipulate it in some way. Remember, this universe is full of all sorts of possibility, all sorts of life out there. And technological advancement does not in any way correlate to spiritual advancement. or a movement of a being into the heart and the spirit co-joined with the mind as a trinity and operating through that. Not at all. This is an absolute falsehood. We can be extremely technologically advanced, be able to go into the stars, have weapons of mass destruction to destroy planets in the future, and be completely spiritually regressed. Just look at the human experience today. It's an example of it. We've got technology in our hands and probably 40-year-old more advanced technology in the military that we don't know about. But what do we do to ourselves? So there's no correlation between technological advancement and human spiritual expansion. It does not. There's no correlation whatsoever. It should actually be the other way. So we use technology for the betterment of ourselves and our wider world and beyond this planet. But right now we're not. We're nowhere near that. And we need to be honest with ourselves and admit that. So there's no correlation to that. So thinking that I don't dismiss, there's something inside me that doesn't quite utterly dismiss that something out there may be trying to do that. Because there are beings out there who probably think they're better than God, better than the divine, because they're technologically advanced, but within their hearts, depressed and of dense state and of hate. So they use what they have and try to do what we may say is utterly impossible. And it is. But we can, through our ingrained states of consciousness, whatever we've ingrained within ourselves, within our belief systems, could open up all manner of possibility once we leave our conscious state. That period between leaving the body and actually realizing what you are and that your destination is pure love and all possibility of just an emptiness of being everywhere. There's a period of what's happened to me, and in that sort of period, we may open other abstractions of experience to ourselves, which to us may seem like a lifetime, but in the timelessness of the infinite, where there is no time, it could be just that. And we may overlay the illusion of life itself, the human illusion, the abstraction over our pure real state, and then add another abstraction on top of that, in that state between, as we just leave life, say, in a near-death experience, in an unconscious state of a dream, or whatever it might be. And even that this experience may be something we'll force upon ourselves when we actually do leave and exit life itself, because we're all going to have three things that are guaranteed in life, and that's to be born, to pay taxes, and to ultimately leave when our spirit leaves the body. So these are, it's important to understand what we ingrain within ourselves. For me, personally, there's nothing but the infinite out there. And it doesn't look like anything. Because there is nothing to look at. The infinite is absolutely and utterly pure feeling. It's energy. Energy isn't visible. We are expressions of the one, a fractal of our core in these bodies and many other bodies, maybe in multiple lifetimes in many universes out there. And we are just pure light. We are pure information. Information is just energy. Energy, I call the infinite book within, is actually energetic information. That information that is expanded out within you when you open that information as energy in that book. And it's felt, it's translated almost invisibly into words through the unity of the spirit, the heart, and the mind. It doesn't actually enter here. And that's where the words are understood from within. It's like intuition, it's like your inner thought. When you go deep and you think, you're thinking words, you're thinking energy transferred and transmuted into words, which then your brain understands, which you process in the mind. But it's internal energy, and it's thought and emotion. And information is just energy, it's just light. So that's what we are, where we are everywhere in all things, and when we leave this body, that's what we will return to. our core. We are just present in everything. The one is everything. We are already in it, and we just rediscover that. Or rather, we reintegrate back into it, into our core, which is always there. Just a fractal of ourselves are here, and we're connected eternally to it. And the challenge with the infinite, with the spiritual journey, is to rediscover that while you're here. And when you rediscover that while you're here, the more and more you traverse this path, which is my message, and always will be, the closer you get to reality and understanding of it, which is eternal. That will then drive your perceptions of what actually is real. And these things, be they death traps, be they heaven and hell paradigms, be they whatever it is that the other stepping stones across the river may tell you, may feel from them, or may absorb as doctrines or dogmas or teachings or whatever it might be. As you move closer away from the side of the river we're closest to right now, to the other side, which is ultimately a release from the cycle of rebirth, if you like, or moksha, or what Buddhists seek as well, is getting to a state where coming into life for reasons of expansion are no longer needed. You can call that state whatever you wish. And the closer you get to there, the more we understand what we truly are. And when we leave these lives, as the closer we get to the other side of the river, then there aren't these paradigms. They don't exist. These portals or whatever may be experiencing these death traps, they don't exist. They may open up. There's always possibility out there, depending on the dense vibration of our state when we leave, or when we have near-death experiences, or any others where we have these out-of-body experiences, or dreams of deities or gods fighting over us. They are manifestations of the state we are in, of the ingrained and hardened belief systems we have within. They don't exist. They are not our reality. They are just stepping stones across to the other side. They will be there until we move through lifetimes and experiences of love and grace and beauty and manifestation and free will and pre-planned events, which we all have. And as we move across that river on the stones, the understanding of life and anything that may be trying to do what it thinks it's trying to do out there has absolutely no relevance, no strength, no validity at all, because it's not part of the divine. It's not part of the divine source from which you came and to which you go. So I hope this video helped you, and please like and subscribe. Again, I'll put the links to the other alternative channels that I looked at to watch some of these videos, the books that I've read, and the others that may be of interest to you. Again, I have no connection to any of this. I just think they're pretty good, so you might want to have a look at those yourself. But remember, what we experience is up to us. There are no traps for us. There's only beauty and light in life, if we choose to have it, but it's guaranteed out from beyond this. And whatever it is we put in between, the abstractions we put in between, they don't need to be there. They all are dismissed when we keep an open mind to understand the greater reality. It requires an open mind. It requires an open heart. It requires the engagement of the spirit, which is always open because it's eternal and infinite. And that's the path that we should be all taking, because that is truly, actually, how this human experience is going to change. It's not going to change permanently and for the betterment of multi-generations and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of human existence that is to come, unless we all start moving into a different frequency of vibration. We can make changes by helping our fellow human experiencer in our daily actions, words, thoughts and intents, through giving, through charity work, to helping those less fortunate, to supporting services and ideas that help those less fortunate than ourselves, voting for things that will help those less fortunate than ourselves rather than our pockets and our wallets. Those things will help. But they're physical paradigms which can be crushed by the next person who doesn't think like that with power to diminish it. The true essence is when we all change alongside those physical things we can do. We all need to show our teeth and have physical acts, because that's also energy. It's intention. But we also need to move our spiritual expansion forward. Science will move towards the metaphysical. Quantum physics will soon prove almost everything the metaphysical has been saying and has been written about for thousands of years. It's getting there. It's moving closer to openness. But it's not, in my opinion, the route to awareness. Quantum physics and science will move alongside and catch up with what the spiritualists and the mystics have been saying for a long time that was regarded as fantasy. Because it's real. It's the truth. It's how I see it, how I perceive it, and that's what my videos are about. You don't have to be taken seriously at all. You don't have to even believe anything I say. It could be just mere entertainment for many of you. But it's the reality that I see. And you know, it'll be my reality when I leave. I know where I'm going because I feel it in my heart. I know it in my entire consciousness. I feel it and engage with it at all times, silently within. And that's what we all, I hope, will move to one day. So ignore these things that you see. Remember near-death experiences of what we have today. There may be something different another time, depending on what state we are in. But just be open to consider everything, because that's what expansion's all about. You can't move forward if your wheels are locked. You can only move forward when your wings are spread and you let the wind of a different perspective fly you around the mountains so you can see different terrains. So thanks so very much for listening. I was hoping to make this short, but it's not again. And again, I'll leave the links, and so have a great day if you're watching this at whatever time it is for you, and thank you very much and love to you all. Thank you. Bye.